Thank you very much for attending this webinar, and a warm welcome from ILX Group and Simplilearn. Today's topic is building a curriculum for digital transformation. We all know that digital transformation is important for our organizations, but do we have the learning curriculum that delivers the skills and behaviors that our teams need to succeed? And if we are going to build this curriculum for digital transformation, how do we make sure that it's aligned to our company's digital transformation goals? In today's webinar, we're going to cover four things. We're going to cover the drivers for digital transformation. We're going to cover the skills that are in demand, the skills that are needed to deliver on that ambition. And we're going to look at the roles that are critical. So the roles within your organizations that are critical for delivering digital transformation. And then we're going to focus on, well, how do we build that ideal curriculum for your organization? My name's Russell Kenrick. I'm the Managing Director at ILX and a lifelong lover of learning. ILX has been around for about 30 years, and we're digital learning specialists. We really specialize in digital transformation skills and capabilities, and we've got a long heritage in things like Agile, Scrum, project management, IT service management, a whole range of areas. And we're one of the first organizations to develop e-learning in these topics. And today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined, well, virtually speaking anyway, by Krishna Kumar. He's the CEO and founder of Simplilearn, who are one of the world's leading digital skills providers. They're based out of San Francisco and Bangalore in India. Welcome, Krishna, to the webinar. How are you today?
Thanks, Russell. It's a pleasure to be part of today's webinar. Look forward to speaking with all the attendees and talking about how to build digital curriculum for getting ready for a digital transformation. So really excited to be part of this webinar and look forward to talking on those topics, and also making sure that we answer a lot of questions as part of this webinar and try to make it more interactive than just be speaking about what we do. So I really look forward to all the audience to ask if they have any questions related to this topic, and we'll spend good amount of time taking those questions and giving our point of view on that.
Yeah, it's great. It's really got to be interactive, guys. So please keep your questions coming. That's how you'll get the most value out of it, and that's how we hope to be able to help. So I'm going to get started with the first slide. Why digital transformation? Well, long before this global pandemic really reared its head earlier this year, organizations have been embarking on a digital transformation journey. And that's for good reason. You know, I've kind of tried to characterize 5 of them here, but you know, there are many. You know, first and foremost, customer expectations are changing. These days, everybody expects everything to be available on demand, and that's forcing businesses to transform operating models. Workforce engagement's a hot topic too. So employers are looking for new ways to create productivity improvements, and digital technology is playing a pivotal role. Digital transformation is helping employees to be more effective as well, and that's helping organizations. Security is also a top priority. One of the biggest headaches for many IT leaders is how to place more data at the edge of their network whilst keeping that data secure. I think partnerships is also really important. So businesses are increasingly becoming reliant on each other and working with distributed supply chains, with distributors, with partnerships. And technology is the way that those organizations are integrating. And of course, it helps us to make decisions, better decisions more quickly. And placing data and analytics at the center of a digital transformation strategy will allow businesses to take advantage of the opportunities that are ahead of them. This is just a couple of the reasons why digital transformation and skilling people to handle it is so critical for organizations. So when I was preparing for this, I was thinking, well, where do I start? And I've got to call upon a couple of organizations that I often go to try and understand, you know, where to start when thinking about new areas. So first of all, the Boston Consulting Group, and they recognized 4 pillars for digital transformation. These are 4 priorities that if you've decided that digital transformation is a thing within an organization, a thing you've got to get a hold of, then where are you focusing? So reinventing the customer journey. Boston Consulting Group, they talk about digitizing the customer relationships, and that's becoming increasingly important. They talk about leveraging the power of data, and for a lot of companies, data will become a huge asset in the future. They also talk about redefining the operating model. Digital natives are already pointing to a future in which business processes are automated, machine-first activities. And they also talk about building digitally driven organizations, so straight from the start. And over time, they're expecting to see a shift from processes operated by humans to processes designed and audited by humans, but implemented by technology. And if you sit back for a minute and think about that, the implications for talent and for organizational design are profound. Forrester did some research on this, and they went and surveyed the C-suite and found that 74, not surprisingly, but 74% of C-suite execs said they have a digital strategy. But yet only 15% of them believe they have the capabilities in their team to deliver that strategy. So we need to start understanding our organizational transformational goals. It has to be our #1 priority in learning. We have to link back the learning that we're offering to our employees to the business goals, to the transformational goals that our businesses have. And you can see there's a clear reason here, there's a clear driver. This COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent lockdowns have placed digital transformation firmly on the agenda for a large number of businesses. And in many cases, it's been a catalyst for accelerated digital transformation. And from a survey that we got a hold of recently, we found these three really, really stark statistics. So 66% of IT professionals say the pandemic has exposed weaknesses in their digital strategy, driving urgent needs to push through initiatives that were once part of multi-year transformational programs. So this is things that they knew they wanted to do, but for various reasons, they hadn't actually allocated the budget to make them happen. And now those things are being pulled forward. 65% of the IT professionals in this report were saying that they've already implemented projects during the pandemic, which were previously dismissed as unnecessary. Remote working, cloud, security, you can see where that's happening with so many people now working in remote capacities. 83% of IT professionals believing that digital transformation is critical if they're to recover quickly from the pandemic. And it's businesses that are pivoting right now, spotting opportunities, using technology to enable that pivot, that are going to recover more quickly. And we are without doubt at an inflection point or a pivot point within what people more widely known as the fourth industrial revolution, so the technology-driven revolution. I think this digital transformation concept is more vital than ever. The need to develop remote and contactless business models has made digital transformation an urgent priority for business. Without new business models and new ways of working, some companies are going to be unable to operate. And so you could say that digital transformation is now essential for business survival. And anecdotally, even over the last 4 weeks, summer holidays, I found businesses that used to be face-to-face businesses now operating through apps with customers. And this could be from as unsophisticated as a takeaway restaurant all the way up to a multinational organization. It's clear that every business is thinking about how they transform their operating model to survive. And businesses do need to increase their use of digital technologies in order to reduce the dependence on in-person interactions. We all love in-person interactions. I think in the long run, there will still be a healthy amount of it, but also we're looking and thinking about how we can do things differently and how technology can support us to do that. The businesses that thrive are the businesses that will take full advantage of the fourth industrial revolution technologies. And everybody really needs to take some responsibility for this. If you're involved in learning, you understand this, you're passionate about this, individuals who take personal responsibility for learning, see accelerated careers. But we see this as a sort of tripartite thing. We see this as companies, as professionals, and as governments taking joint responsibility for developing capability. And developing capability in these digital skills areas are what's going to make a difference. Organizations are sometimes taking the approach to develop their own employees rather than hiring from outside. Hiring can be more expensive than upskilling internal employees, and you don't necessarily get that connection with your brand and culture, and turnover can be a real hidden cost in that space. So by companies investing in people, you can see huge benefits. As individuals, we know that we need to update our skills. We need to continually refresh and learn if we want to be viable in the workforce. And I think governments are going to be looking increasingly at different ways in which they can help support both organizations and individuals in upskilling programs. And we're probably going to see hybrid financing models that draw upon all three resources in the future. And if you think about government-funded apprenticeship programs, for example, you've got a classic one right there. So on top of direction of travel, businesses looking to transform their operating models, this coronavirus pandemic has really unleashed a revolution in learning. And from what I mean by that is that this Forbes report, blended learning will now be the benchmark. And this is schools, universities, workplace learning. The revolution in learning is now, and it's taking place anywhere, anytime. And that's because people and society is changing. And as people involved in learning and development, in terms of delivering programs to our teams, our people, this is what we've got to work with. Before COVID-19, online training was a growth sector, but and we see that within our business, which has a classroom element and a digital element. But the pandemic has really accelerated a shift that was already there. Just to put some numbers on it, the global spend on e-learning in 2010 was something like $32 billion. And in 2020, it's expected to be over $200 billion. So a huge amount of growth in this sector as people, as individuals, as organizations shift from traditional delivery modalities to digital delivery modalities. We saw throughout 2020 largely in-person instruction shutting down almost at all levels, with some universities going for online only, ourselves having to cancel our classroom training programs, and our customers doing the same. There was a global work from home survey that was done by the Global Workplace Analytics organization that says 73% of US workers said that they are very successfully working from home, and it's something like 68% globally. That managers are just as satisfied with performance, and many, up to 70%, reporting the same or better results. So remote working is probably a thing that will continue. I saw that Google and Facebook now expect employees to work from home, or at least to have the option to work from home, until July 2021. And Simplilearn were doing a survey recently of L&D managers and executives, and that said that 70% of the companies that offered classroom training as part of their L&D offering before the epidemic and the pandemic have transitioned to digital delivery. 82% of those saying that now online skills are working better than they were expecting and better than the classroom. So there's a huge movement in that direction. So hopefully that's given you an idea of what's driving some of this. Some of the things are more common sense, but what are the real drivers? And I now want to hand over to Krishna, who's going to talk a little bit more about the skills and that ideal curriculum and our approach to that. So let me do a bit of tech here and hand over to Krishna, who should now have control. Krishna, let me know if you can move the slides on.
I'm just trying. No.
Yeah, so you have mouse control apparently, and keyboard control.
I just requested again. Did you see this?
Yeah. Okay, how's that working for you?
Yeah. So hello everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. I am Krishna Kumar. I am the founder and CEO of Simplilearn. We are in the business of providing digital skills training for the last 10 years. And as Russell was talking about, all different kinds of ecosystem players spending time and effort in getting ready for the digital future. So we serve all the three audience. We serve professionals who come and find us online to take up our courses and go through that courses online. So a large part of our audience comes to us directly. So some of your employees might be our customers already, and they must be going through our courses by finding us online. We work with a lot of companies across the globe who sign up with us to get ready for the digital transformations, and we'll talk about Simplilearn approach to getting ready for digital transformation as part of this presentation. So we follow a little bit different approach than what is prevalent in the market, and I'm really excited to come and present that to you. We also work with a lot of governments across the world. I think as part of the readiness for fourth industrial revolution, a lot of governments across the globe, they are spending budget on making sure that their youths are ready for the new future. So we are engaged with multiple governments as part of that initiatives as well. Okay. So that let me just tell you about what skills are in demand. Russell, if you can move to the next slide, please. So I think if you look at the skills that are in demand, it has not changed before and after pandemic, because these days whenever I speak with anyone, everybody wants to know what has changed. The good news is that when it comes to what skills are in demand, nothing has changed. What has changed is that the demand has only accelerated. So everything that was in demand earlier, be it data science or machine learning or cybersecurity or cloud computing or digital marketing or agile and a scrum way of managing projects, all these were in demand in the past as well. It's just that after the pandemic, the demand has accelerated as we would have expected. See, digital transformation is not a new word that got invented during the pandemic. This was a priority for a lot of companies before the pandemic as well. It's just that we are forced to transform fast, because businesses which are fully digital are the ones who are doing well, and they're doing extremely well. Businesses which are not digital are the ones which have got impacted big way. Now, what was being talked about for many years in the last few years, people could see that in front of their eyes, and hence there is a lot of renewed focus on these technologies. And this focus is from all kinds of actors, if you have to call that way. Individuals are skilling because they want to get a better future. They want to in a way future proof themselves, because there's no dearth of jobs in these areas. In fact, companies which are big time impacted are also hiring in these areas. So think of a large retailer which got big time impacted because of the shutdown. They also want to go online, and hence they require this kind of skill set. And companies who are doing extremely well, their business has further accelerated, so they are also hiring professionals in this area. So that has created a renewed interest among professionals to acquire these skills. So they are coming and taking up these courses. Companies are moving much faster than what they were doing before the pandemic, so they are looking at building these skills at scale. And of course, governments also wants to make sure that as a country they have skills in this area, so that they get a bigger share of the global trade happening from their country. Now, one trend we also noticed during this time is that there is a lot of opportunities where all these three are collaborating together to get skills or build skills in this area. So there are government links scheme that are incentivizing companies to go and train their employees. So you also see a lot of collaboration also happening in all these different kinds of spend that has traditionally been in silos, but when it comes to getting ready for the future, it's happening in a very, very closely coordinated manner as well. Okay, so, Russell, can you please move to the next slide? Okay. Now, when it comes to getting ready and learning these skills, there are primarily two different approaches that exist in the market. The one is a traditional approach, and we call it skills-based approach, because essentially these areas like, let's say, data science or machine learning or a cyber security, these are much bigger or much in-depth areas, and it consists of various skills that one needs to have to become an expert in that area. Now, the skills-based approach always existed, right? There are a lot of what we call online learning libraries provider. So they'll provide you short courses, half-an-hour courses, 1-hour courses that you can subscribe to and learn some of these skills. So this approach has been in existence for quite some time. Now, when it comes to ILX and Simplilearn approach, our approach is not teaching you one particular skills to learn those areas. Our approach is more what we call it a role-based approach, and we'll talk about what a role-based approach means, but it's a much more involved training process rather than just giving you a half-an-hour or a 1-hour course. So as I go through this presentation, I'll introduce what we mean by that role-based approach for getting ready to take your company more digital. So please, next slide, please. Okay, so but before I explain you that role-based approach, let me just tell you the three stage approach that we follow at Simplilearn. So what we do is that whenever we start engaging with any organization or any government agency, we first try to identify what roles are important within your organization, depending upon who you are, what industry you operate into. So these are the roles that are required for your company to become a digital company, or these are the roles that are required to digitally transform your business. So first we identify all the required roles within your organization. We also have a master list of roles that, and I'll just show you, give you a sneak peek into what those roles are as part of this presentation. So that's step number one. Then comes the step number two, that once we have identified what roles are required within your organization, the next step is that what is the right mix of skills required for each of these roles. So we take, let's say we identify that there are 25 different roles that you need to have within your organization, and then we go ahead and for each of those 25 roles, we identify what skills are required for each of those roles. See, some of the roles are not so when I talked about the skills, I showed you 6 or 7 different skills that are important for digital transformation. But when it comes to role, a single role might have a mix and match of those skills. A person might need to know a little bit of data science also, he needs to know cloud also, and cyber security also. It's not that all these roles are very deep within a certain area alone. Sometimes some of the roles required understanding of different areas. Like for example, a product manager. If you have a product manager role within an organization to come out with the next product that your customers would like, the product manager is not a deep technical expert. The product manager needs to have a horizontal understanding of various technologies so that he or she can come out with the right product. So we decide what is the right mix of skills required for each of these roles. And then the last step process from our side is that once we have identified those skills, we build what we call a learning path, a set of different courses that each of that roles requires to get completed to be qualified as that particular role. What I mean is that let's say we identify a role as data scientist, then we'll identify all the skills that are required for that person to become data scientist. And not only our learning approach enables them to learn those skills, we also help them practice. So as part of Simplilearn and ILX platform, you not only get to learn the skills, you also get to do projects using those skills, so that you feel more confident about that you have learned those skills and you have demonstrated by doing some project in those areas to be qualified enough to do those roles. At this point in time, let me also call that out specifically that Russell talked about building skills internally is easier because people know your culture already than hiring from outside. But from Simplilearn experience of having worked in 150 countries working with multiple corporates, we see that even if you have budget, even if you have intent to go and hire from outside, there are no, when it comes to these new technologies, there aren't people available in the market to work for you. Like you would have expected that countries which has a very high population, let me talk about Bangalore, where I spend a lot of my time. It's a large country, a lot of population, a lot of unemployed youth, but when it comes to hiring, is as difficult as you can imagine. So if today, if a company wants to hire say 100 data scientists, it's virtually impossible for them to hire in Bangalore because so many people are not available. Those who are available, they are already working. Another big challenge that we see when it comes to new age skills is that every, or every might be a overstatement, anyone who knows these technologies really well, they want to work for a Google, they want to work for an AWS. So if you're not one of those top 5 tech companies, attracting this talent becomes very, very difficult. So most companies that we see in even in Silicon Valley, if they want to build skills in these areas, they start identifying their internal employees and they start training them. They know the company well, they know the business well, they've already stayed in the company for quite some time, they are already kind of settled in that organization, they like relating themselves with that particular organization, and when the company invests in scaling them, they also appreciate, and it only increases their commitment toward the business, and it works pretty well. But if they go and want to hire outside, it becomes very difficult. So what we see companies doing, that they hire one or two, or a very limited number of people from outside the organization, but majority of the skills they build internally. Next slide, please. Yeah. So I think so next what I wanted to talk about is that for depending upon which business you are in, whether you are in financial services, where you are a CPG or retail business, or you are a telecom or a technology consulting, or be it any other business that your company operates, any other domain that your company operates in, what we have seen is that all these businesses have certain trends. Like when you look at say retail, most retailers, they want to go online, and when it comes to customer, now customers are living in what we call a phygital world, right? What it means is that we want to buy and you want to experience your product or buy your product online at the convenience of my home, or I want to go and buy it from your store. I want to have similar experience whether I buy online, whether I buy from a store. And I also want a, from the customer perspective, the customers also want a scenario wherein they can move from an online world to an offline world seamlessly, right? So I want to have a scenario where I can go and buy online and go and pick up the stuff from a store. So all those things are some of the trends that you will see in a retail business. In a similar manner, if you look at any other domain, there are some trends that are becoming very, very prevalent. Like when it comes to financial services, or let's talk about a bank. I have not been to a bank branch in last 5 years. I never felt the need to go to a bank. Pretty much anything and everything that I want to do when it comes to a financial transaction with my bank, I can do it online. So there was no need for me to go to bank. I'm sure this is the same case with many of you, right? You can pay bills online, you can transfer to your friends through peer-to-peer banking. You can do pretty much anything and everything that a banking that a bank stands for, pretty much online. Now that has also created a need of building a lot of solutions so that that becomes possible. Now also for a moment, think about a bank which is in existence for, let's say, 100 years and has been providing banking solution. Nobody is going to the bank, and for us, bank is just an entry in our bank account, right? If I log in, I expect a certain amount of balance in my bank account. I trust my bank that that balance is correct, and most of the time it is correct. What stops Amazon to start a bank? They know how to handle data better than anybody across the world. They have database of most of the people who spend money online, and we'll see such kind of things happening, that companies which are very, very technically strong, they'll get into financial services, because financial services is all about numbers, right? I pay you money, and it's all about making some deduction at some account and making addition in another account. So every industry is going through. In fact, there are already news and saying that Amazon is going to start one of the largest insurance company, right? They want to insure everything. So a lot of such disruptions are happening across the world, and there are prevalent trends in each of this industry. But if you look at and we have listed some of these trends that we see in these industries, and we'll share this deck with all of you. But one common underlying theme that you could see across all these domains is that they are powered by the same set of technology. It's the same set of technology like data science, machine learning, AI, cybersecurity, cloud, that is powering most of this trend. So as long as you are skilled in those digital skills, depending depending upon what industry your company belongs to, those people, your employees will be ready to work on those kind of trends and be ready for the future. So I'll not go into each of these trends. I just wanted to point out that every domain it has some prevalent trend powered by the same set of digital skills that we talked about in the first slide when I took over and started talking about those skills. Just next slide, please. Yeah. Now this is what I had touched upon briefly, that when it comes to getting ready for the digital transformation, there are rules that we start with. So we start with identifying what all roles are required within your organization to get ready for that. And this is our view, or Simplilearn and ILX view of the different roles that are required for a company to get ready for the digital future. And what we have done is that our service lines are also, or our training offerings are also are aligned broadly around these roles. So what we have done is that at a very high level, we have we look at our training offerings into 4 mega categories, and we call those mega categories as digital business, digital operations, data and AI, and technology. This is for this has nothing to do with how these roles operate within an org. This is more for our convenience and trying to club related technologies together. So within each of these 4 mega domains, there are roles that are important, and depending on which domain you operate and what is your current status of your skills readiness, you would require all or a subset of these roles to be filled within your org to be ready for the digital transformation. And at Simplilearn and ILX, we have solution that allows you to build these skills for almost all the roles that you could see. Now what we are seeing showing here is close to 37 different roles across those 4 mega categories. I'll not go into each of these roles, but as you could imagine that these roles are related to data scientists, these roles are related to different roles related to taking your company to the cloud. These are roles related to doing business analysis in terms of what product you should build. These are roles related to marketing those products online. So all kinds of roles we have covered as part of our product offering. And if you're on the path to getting your company ready for the digital future, we're more than happy to come and connect with you and understand where you are and try to map your requirement to the existing role-based curriculum that we already have, and maybe spend more time sharing our learning that we have across by virtue of working with multiple companies across the globe. Now, I also wanted to give you some bit of idea about how do we create this learning path. See, many times what we have seen is that if you look at it at a very high level of abstraction, a lot of role appears similar. Like case in point is this role related to data, right? So we have 3 different role-based learning path. One is for data analyst, another is for data scientist, and another is for AI engineer. Now, AI engineer. So if someone looks at a high level abstraction, these roles appear to be similar. The skill set required also appear to be similar. But if you just go a little bit deep, these are 3 different roles. So data analyst is more a entry level role. Companies require a lot of data analysts because every business is producing so much of data. The data needs to be compiled, data needs to be made sense of, and this kind of roles are required in plenty within an organization. Whereas when it comes to data scientist, this is a role that's required. That's a pretty deep role, trying to analyze data and making sense of the data. You don't require as many data scientists. Like depending upon the scale of the business, if you have 100 data analyst requirement, maybe you have 4 or 5 data scientist requirement, and so on. So this is again a different role than a data analyst role. But there are some when it comes to skills, there are some overlap of skills between these roles. And then there is the AI engineer role, which is more of a deep technical role on using the data and manipulating the data using a lot of technology so that you can build intelligent system. So while there might be some overlap between these skills, inherently these skills and these roles are different. And once we engage with you, we can talk, we can share a lot of insight about each of these roles and what businesses require how many of these roles as part of their readiness for digital transformation. So next slide, please. Okay. Also, before I sign off on this presentation, I just want to re-emphasize that when it comes to learning this digital skills that we just talked about, I think self-paced video isn't enough. See that those videos are good enough when you're learning one particular skill, right? You want to learn Microsoft Excel, that works pretty well. Or you want to learn one particular product, let's say you want to learn how to use Microsoft Project, it works pretty well. But when you want to learn deep skill, it requires a lot of interactivity. You learn only by doing it. You learn through mentorship. So in our solution, it's not that we just give a video and our employees are expected to learn from this video on their own. The approach that Simplilearn and ILX follows is that every course has video, but the role of the video is just like what the role of a book in an offline world. So you take videos and get prepared for the topic at a very high level, but the real learning happens in a class where there is an expert instructor. There are a set of students who are learning those topics, and they learn in a typical classroom environment. It's just that the classroom is on the cloud. So they learn by interacting with each other. They learn by interacting with the instructor, and the focus in the class is doing some projects together using that technology, so that while you are applying that project, if you get stuck somewhere, the instructor can help you, the teaching assistant can help you. So it's a much more interactive learning, facilitated by instructor and delivered by hands-on medium. So everything that you learn in our platform is all about learning by doing, not by just listening to a video. And this is the approach that gets us a lot of users who come and sign up with us directly as well, and that's how we started offering these lines to enterprises to train their employees at a scale. Next slide, Russell, please.
So I think where we are now, that gets us to a kind of opportunity for questions, Krishna. That was a real fantastic and whistle-stop summary. You know, what Krishna was talking about, understanding the organizational goals, mapping the skills, identifying the roles, and then building a curriculum. Yeah, that's not an easy thing to do for an organization, particularly a large and complex one. But it's absolutely the right process. Start with the organizational goals and work through to building a curriculum that helps to close those skill gaps. So hopefully we've given you a little bit of insight in about 40 minutes around how you might want to start doing that and what you might need to do next. But we'd love to get some questions. I don't know, Rachel, whether there's been questions into the chat window whilst we've been talking, or if anybody has any questions now they'd like to ask Krishna or myself, would be great.
Yes, so we do have a couple of questions in the question box. So the first one is from Paul Williams. It says, are you not restricting yourselves by aligning the skills to roles? Is it not better to identify blocks or bricks of skills that can then be linked to roles at different levels? For example, basic, experienced, expert. And are you maybe assuming companies have these actual roles when they might not be recognized as such in different workplaces? So I don't know who wants to take that.
Yeah, so I think, Williams, that what you are making is a great point. And if you look at the different roles that you have identified within those 4 mega domain, we acknowledge that fact, right? That you might have skills at a certain level, and that is good enough for a certain kind of role within the organization. But you require the same skill at a different level to do a different role within the organization. So we have seen we do recognize that, and we create those roles accordingly. So when we start engaging together, we create roles accordingly. That maybe the roles has some kind of overlap, and that is what I was trying to explain in my last slide. That for many companies which are at a smaller scale, data analyst alone might be sufficient and they already have certain skills. But if you want to go to the next level of sophistication, then you have to add more skills and get to the data scientist kind of level.
I think the other thing I'd add, Paul, was you know, that this is about prioritizing the absolutely critical roles within your organization. If you can explicitly figure out which ones they are, and then create programs around them, you know, blended development programs around those critical roles. Granted, the job titles might be completely different, but identifying those critical roles and prioritize that learning, then you're going to be able to juggle the needs, because there's never enough learning budget to cover all of the things we want to develop and deliver training in. And so it's how do I focus around the most important things and the most important roles that are going to help this organization succeed. So it's a little bit about prioritization as well.
And Paul has just followed that up with saying, so you work with companies to map against their individual roles?
Yes.
Perfect. And then another question from an old friend of ILX, from Mehdi, says, how do you measure the soft skills acquisition?
So I think, well, I'll start with that. So we are a tech skills provider here, but we recognize that behavioral change comes from both hard and soft skills, and that is really where our virtual delivery comes in. So when we work with our clients, what we're trying to do is, around that technical skills capability, develop a blended program which allows us to identify the behavioral skills that might be standing in the way of the implementation of the technical skills. And that's really the approach we like to take. I don't know, Krishna, whether you've got another thought on that.
I think, Russell, I also agree to that. So I don't have anything extra to add there, but I agree to what you just explained. Plus, there are other providers as well. Since many times when you are working on a bigger transformation project, I think while we bring in all the technical skills required for your team employees to be ready, I think many times you also need to engage with somebody else who comes and provides them with the required soft skills for those roles. So we have seen scenarios where we coexist, right? So we don't want to sound as an expert on everything. We are very, very focused on the hard skills that are required for those roles, so that you know the real know-how of those roles. But we also understand, appreciate, and encourage employees to go and acquire the other soft skill component that makes you a great role player in that particular role.
Thank you both. We don't have any more questions in the question box at the moment. If anyone else has any questions, then type them in now. Otherwise, I'll hand back over to Russell just to finish up the presentation. Great.
Well, look, I'd like to say thank you to Krishna, and thank you to all of you once again for spending your time this afternoon with us. We're going to be sending out copies of our latest white paper, Skilling for the Digital Economy, a role-based approach, which will go into a little bit more in detail some of the things Krishna has been talking about today. And we'll also be posting a recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel, and links to that will be sent out to everybody, I think Thursday or Friday this week. So I guess it just leaves me finally to say, if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about how we can help you, our contact details are here. We'd love to hear from you and give you a personalized approach. If not, I wish you a very, very warm afternoon. Take care, and we'll speak to you all again very, very soon. Thank you very much.